and welcome ladies and gentlemen to Tails Skypatrol on the Sega Game Gear. I'm One Wild Sheep yet again, and this is it's an interesting little spin-off title, and it's Tails' first spin-off title in the entire series as well, folks. Where obviously we control Tails, and we have to deal with the dreaded Windy Witchcart, who is terrorizing the island. So yeah, this is Tails' own standalone game. It's a pretty neat little side-scrolly shootery sort of deal that was released exclusively to the Sega Game Gear. And I don't believe this game was ever released officially outside of Japan until Sonic Adventure DX rolled around. But this is the gameplay, folks. You basically fly forward and you throw your ring at enemies to kill them. As you can tell at the top left of the screen, we do have a flight meter, and that doubles as both our health gauge and our flying gauge. If that goes to 0, we will drop to the floor and we will die, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. However, we also lose it if we get hit by enemies and what have you. And the big issue with this game is if you touch anything. If you touch a wall, you die. If you touch the floor, you die. If you touch a rotating wall thingy, that like this one for example, you, my friends, will die. So yeah, it's actually an extremely difficult game. As you can tell, I died already. It's the first level of the game. And I am awful at this game. I always have been awful at this game. I always will be awful at this game. I've always found it frustrating. Although you can grab onto multiple objects in your environment to make your ways easier. For example, if you see a minecart, you can grab onto the minecart to ride it to go by that much quicker. If you find gems, you can pick up the gems, and after you collect enough of them, you gain enough points to get yourself an extra life. And every now and then you'll find these hard candy sweets, these mints. I have no idea why these are collectibles, but if you pick up these hard candy mints, then Tails will increase his flight meter, because I guess the sugar gives him more energy, I don't know. But basically you need to pick up all these candy and mints. You need to try and get through the stage as quick as you can before the flight meter goes down. And you can adjust your speed by pressing either forward or backwards on the D-pad. And right now we got an invulnerability power-up. It lasts for literally a second or two. It's not all that useful. But whenever you do get the invulnerability power-up, what I sort of advise you to do is just simply go forward as quick as possible, because then you can just ignore all damage for a few seconds. It's very useful, it's very handy, despite its limited amount. And that was the first level done, folks. This is a very short game. Like, seriously, this is a one-parter LP, you know, it's a really interesting one. And as you could tell, there were no enemies in that first act, because that was technically a training act. That was just there to get you used to the controls, get you used to the mechanics. So now we are in the first proper act of the game, and the first area of the game where you're very likely to die. However, do not fret, because, you know, it's a very short game. If you die, chances are you can get back to the point where you died quite easily. And you're going to see me die quite a few times during this playthrough. I really don't like this game that much, just because I find the controls really awkward. I know this game has its fans, and the controls for a lot of people are okay, but this game suffers from what I call Game Gear syndrome anyway, where the game has this zoomed in screen where it's kind of hard to see what's coming up, and the aiming on the ring is a little bit awkward, so sometimes I think I'm going to hit someone with a ring, but it'll just miss them. So, I don't know, I tend to have issues in terms of controlling Tails in this one. It's a bit more frustrating than it should be. By the way, the stage is called Rail Canyon. This isn't the first time we'll be seeing a stage called Rail Canyon in the Sonic franchise, actually, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a stage we're going to be seeing way later back in, well, later on in the Sonic Heroes game. That's probably going to be months from now. I'll tackle that LP, but I've recorded the footage already, but you know. But anyway, whenever you see these things on the floor, you can actually grab them with your ring as well, which will automatically happen. Whenever you go near things you can pick up with a ring, Tails will automatically pick it up, and you'll be able to go sent flying, what can I say? And every time you run across a bell, be sure to ring it. The bells are this game's checkpoints. If you don't ring the bell, you will die, and you will go back from the very start of the level again. Which is no good. It's not cool, brah. It's not cool. You're gonna want to ring those bells. And I do kind of like the soundtrack as well. It's not very memorable. It is definitely not a memorable Sonic soundtrack, but it fits for what it is. It's kind of neat. And, you know, it's all light-hearted fun. What can I say? I mean, this is Tails' game after all. We're going to save the island. From good old Wendy Witchcart, who I believe is just trying to take over the island. I don't think there are Chaos Emeralds at all involved in the plot of this one. There is no Sonic, there is no Knuckles. This is literally Tails and no one else this time around, folks. So, yeah. To everyone who says, why has Knuckles got his own game and Tails hasn't? Well, here's your answer. Tails has his own game. In fact, Tails has 2 of his own games, because the next LP we're taking on after this will be another Tails game. Although the next Tails game I do actually like a great deal more than this one. It's a game I'm not fond of because the game design is a Metroidvania, and I don't like Metroidvanias out of principle. But you know, it's okay. But of course, as you can tell, my flight meter was dangerously low there. You need to watch out when you're playing this because that flight meter will creep up on you. And you can usually help yourself out by collecting balloons which will float you up, or collecting weights which will chuck you downwards, and utilizing them to your advantage. Especially in later levels, because in later levels you're going to actually need to make use of those weights, otherwise you're going to crash into walls. You need to make use of balloons, otherwise you're going to crash into walls. So learn how to utilize these things properly now while you can. And you can also grab onto each of these pulley things to put you into each separate area, so if there's a pulley thing near you that is in your way and you don't think you can make the jump or make the flight to whatever location you're going, grab onto the pulley thing. It will spin you up, left, right, down, wherever you need to go, depending on the arrow. It has a little arrow indicator next to it saying, oh, you can go left, you can go right, so there is that. Of course, I shouldn't have to say this, don't go into spike balls. Spike balls are painful things. Anyway, this is the first boss of the game. Now, all the boss fights go around this exact same pan. What do? You mash the button to grab him with your ring, to hit him with the ring. And sometimes you can actually grab him if you hold down the button, I believe. And you can do like this suplex move on him, where it inflicts absolutely massive damage. I'm not very good at actually inflicting this thing, so fighting this boss is a bit awkward for me. So I'm not very good at inflicting a suplex, and remember, don't get hit much. The more you get hit, the lower your flight meter will go. The lower your flight meter will go, the more you will die, which is not cool, brah! It's not cool. Of course, this first boss is easy. You just hit him with a bunch of rings. He'll chuck out these bombs that explode into a bunch of pellet shots if you hit them with your ring, but you know, just keep at it. Eventually he'll go down without much of a fight. There we go, I picked him up there. So you just need to hover over the top of him with your rings, and eventually you may be able to pick him up and just chuck him and throw him around like a wrecking ball. I kind of like this. I just like the idea of Tails picking up mooks and just chucking them at the floor. Like, get down! Think about what you've done! That wasn't a Tails voice at all. Think about what you've done! You bad man! Yeah, it's more like Charmy the Bee, but I can't do Tails' voice. What can I say? Anyway, next zone, Ruinwood. This stage is where the game's difficulty actually does start to get pretty damn tricky. This is where the game's difficulty is going to start shooting up, because this is not an easy game, folks. You know, I really don't find this to be an easy game. I die all the time playing it, and it's frustrating to me. I don't know. Like, ever since I originally played this through Sonic Adventure DX, it's just, ugh. I've never liked it that much. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of most of the Game Gear Sonic games in general. Like, a lot of them I usually complain about the screen crunch, because, come on, was it so hard to just zoom out the screen, or... Like, I understand the Game Gear has a limited resolution, but for God's sake, you could make the sprites smaller, you could make the entire game design smaller so you have more of a view, goddammit, Sega. That's like my biggest issue with every single Game Gear game that was released. It's just, ugh. I don't like screen crunch. It ruins these games. But, yeah, it's okay. It's not the worst game in the world. It does its job, I suppose. I'm just not too fond of this one. I'm more fond of the traditional Sonic games where you either, you collect rings, you go through loop-de-loops, you jump on springs, you boop badniks, you know. I'm more fond of those type of games, not so much flying around chucking rings at walls that spontaneously spawn in. Because yeah, those walls do spontaneously spawn in. Also, that was a 1-up extra life, be sure to pick that up. In some areas, the walls will spontaneously spawn in. And if that happens, then hopefully you have an invulnerability on you. If you don't, you'll need to chuck your ring at the walls that are spawning in like a madman in the hopes that you can open up a two-block pathway. Because Tails is so big, he needs 2 blocks of 2 blocks open to be able to progress. Look at that! Look how tight that was. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's I don't like those respawning blocks. They frustrate me. They're annoying. Absolutely annoying. Although now we are on the second half of the zone, and I don't know. For some reason, this area sort of reminds me of like Mega Man. I don't know why. I think it's the design of the castle and the backgrounds and whatnot. It just gives me Mega Man vibes. It just reminds me of something that might have been out of Mega Man 4 or something. I can't remember most of the Mega Man games off the top of my head, bar the first 2, so I always get confused which Mega Man I'm talking about, but I think it's Mega Man 4 I'm thinking of. I don't know, I get Mega Man vibes out of this particular zone. It's kind of interesting. But yeah. That's all I can really say about this game. You just fly around, you shoot things. And you will not believe how impressed I am. Not impressed, how happy I get whenever I hit a checkpoint with a ring. Because, even though I'm not making it look too bad by here, it is so easy to die in this game. You can die with a moment's notice. You can blink and you will die. That's how easy it is to die in this one, folks. So every time I get one of those checkpoints, I'm always just sitting here like, yes, I'm alive! I'm alive! It's like the anti-Frankenstein and his monster, you know? It's alive! Miles Prower is alive! But anyway, time for another boss fight to deal with. Same tactic applies to last time, just pick him up and chuck him at the floor whenever you can. The difference is, this time, instead of chucking out a bomb at you that splits up into multiple parts, he's just going to flat out chuck baseballs at you. These baseballs, if they hit you, well, they will cause you to fall to the ground. If you fall to the ground, you'll get a headache, you'll bump your head, and you will die. You get indigestion or something, or a heart attack, but yeah, you don't want to bump the ground. You want to go as quick as possible. You want to take this guy down, and yeah, these boss fights aren't that difficult. They're just more tedious and frustrating to deal with because there's a lot of maneuvering you need to pull off. You need to be really good with maneuvering to take these guys down. What can I say? Although a good way to try and grab onto these guys is to wait for them, because eventually you'll start catching up to them. They will eventually start going to the left-hand side of the screen. So when that happens, you can sort of pick them up with a ring and chuck them then. You can make it like a waiting game if you want, and it's probably the easiest way to deal with this boss fight. Just wait for him to go to the side, try and pick him up with a ring, and yeah, that's basically how it works. I don't know, it's kind of awkward sometimes to pick him up with a ring, but when it works great. And you don't actually have to push a button to pick him up, I don't recall. You just need to hover over the top of his head with the ring, and you'll grab him. So there we go, there's Room Wood complete. Fantastic, yet another zone in the bag. That zone took a great deal longer, didn't it? At least it seems like, I don't know. Anyway, time for Metal Island, which is actually not an island. This is a spaceship level. We're in an airship. And it's not the first and not the last time Miles Prower will be dealing with airships in the future. I'll tell you that much. Hell, Miles has a thing for airships. Eventually he's gonna start modifying Sonic's plane, and that's gonna be all fine and dandy. And then steal Sonic's plane as his own. Seriously, he just nicks Sonic's plane at some point in the future and just calls it his own. It's kind of interesting. But, yeah, this Metal Island, you just need to worry about cannonballs in this stage. Loads and loads of cannonballs and loads of enemies. This is where the game starts to get really dickish with its enemy design. They start chucking so many enemies at you. Which, again, if it went for the fact the game is so zoomed in due to it being on a Game Gear screen, it wouldn't be so bad. This stage would not be so bad, but it's just so zoomed in, I can't see obstacles coming up. very well, so I always find myself crashing into walls because I keep thinking there's going to be an entryway, there's going to be room for me to survive later down the road, you know? And that's why I'm not fond of the Game Gear games. I just like the extra space in the rooms, you know? I like being able to see. Like, if someone were to make these games and using a modern game engine in native 1080p or something, I'd love it. Well, in this game, it probably ruined the game design entirely because mooks are said to go off a certain ways, but I don't know. If someone were to make this game and redo it in using a modern game engine that has a higher resolution and zoomed out a bit more, I'd probably play it. You know, I'd probably enjoy it a lot more as well. It's like my big issue with all these things. It's like no matter how good a game is, there's always something small that could ruin the experience for you. Like, this isn't a bad game in any means, you know, it's functional, it works, it's just sort of forgettable. However, due to the screen crunch, I find myself just crashing and being frustrated a lot more often than I need to. In other words, the Game Gear sucks. It's more powerful than the Master System, but for Jesus Christ, zoom out the screen. Please. Can't you just listen to me for once, Sega? Oh. Yeah, it's a really difficult game. It's frustrating. But, you are going to find yourself going through a lot of tight crevices in this particular zone, a lot of cannonballs to deal with, which, if they catch you off guard like they did there with me, you will end up finding yourself crashing into the ships below, and that's no good. It's painful, it's not cool, and Tails has probably just got another concussion because of it. Yeah, you can also get a lot of good speed in this game as well, folks, if you hold forward on the control pad, which I don't recommend doing, because like I said, this is a game where you can't see what's coming up, and the only way I can see someone holding forward constantly during the course of this game is if they tool assist speedrun it. Because then they'll be able to see everything coming up frame by frame and they'll be able to dodge everything perfectly. But that's the only way I can imagine someone going full pelt in this game. Because you can get good speed. In theory. You know, the option is there, but I don't know. Anyway, this is I don't know, a rabbit of sorts. Basically, to beat this one, all you need to do is try and grab her and chuck her as always. Hit her with your ring to stun her and whatnot. And from time to time, she'll chuck all of these missiles at you, all these carrot missiles. They home in on you, so what you want to do is basically wait for a good opportunity and knock them out of the sky. And she'll also blow these kisses at you that are ultra easy to dodge. But with that is Metal Island area cleared. Alright. Now, Wendy, it's time for me to come for you! I really shouldn't try Tails' voice. Problem is, I don't know what good... Unless I just sort of try the really nasally voice from Sonic Heroes. Wow! Look at all those Eggman robots! Eggman's robots! Sorry, I forgot the poor grammar that Tails uses in that game. I don't know. Anyway, this is the final stage, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, this is the final zone of the entire game, Dark Castle, where we're going to meet up with Wendy Witchcart, we're going to deal with her and take her out. And obviously, being the final stage, this is the most frustrating, this is the most difficult, and it's the most easy stage to screw up. You need to find candy as much as possible, because you will lose you'll lose your flight gauge really quickly. You need to make use of all the collectibles you find, such as the minecarts, for example. Otherwise, well, you're gonna be dead. What can I tell you? Get off my ring! What can I tell you? Yeah, those Chompa mooks, they're not really bad, Nix, because Eggman's not in this game, but the chomping mooks are an absolute nightmare to deal with, and thank God this game slows down in this area, because otherwise I would be screwed. It's one of those instances where slowdown actually helps me out. It's very rare it happens, but when it does happen, it's great! Slowdown is not always a bad thing, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you know? We also have to deal with all these these octopi creatures that are shooting these balls, I suppose. They're easy enough to deal with, just shoot the body and the ball will eventually land down. Just be sure not to get hit by the ball and you should be fine for the most part. No, go back, Tails, you messed up invulnerability, I could have used that, oh well. Although whenever you go into drops like that, you do need to be careful, because if Tails goes into the bottomless pit, then he will also die. So just pay attention to that. If you're following a minecart down into a pit, let go of it by pushing the button as quick as physically possible. Otherwise, you know, stuff will not be cool. Stuff will not be good. Tails will be deader than a dodo. Now, I assume this game takes place before Sonic 1. I'm not actually sure. Not Sonic 1, Sonic 3. Sonic 2! Jesus Christ! This takes place before Sonic meets Tails, I think. Don't quote me on that, I'm not entirely sure. I could be wrong, but, I'm assuming it takes place before that, just because I think it takes place on the same island Sonic 2 takes place on. I think, which is at West Side Island. I don't know, I'm not too knowledgeable with this game's plot. It's not one of those games I go back to revisit. It's not one of those plots I really know. No, I'm slowly falling to my doom. Yeah, that's what happens if you don't pay attention to your flight gauge. I had to do a bit of editing by here because, yeah. I missed out on a checkpoint earlier on, so I wasn't able to grab it. So, yeah, checkpoints are a must-have. They are a must-have, definitely. But yeah, this is where, like I said, this is the hardest level in the game. This is where the game's difficulty is really going to start ramping up. And of course, you do need to be careful of those weights, because if you fail when you're using a weight, well, you're going to get hurt. You're going to die, because you need to time your movement on those rotating wall things, otherwise you'll get clipped by the wall that's rotating. And the timing for going into these rotating walls, sometimes I find them a little bit dodgy, especially when I have to use the 10-ton weights per year to fall down. I need to find the right timing to go down. Like, you need to be pixel perfect with that particular drop, otherwise you will die. And if you die, that's not cool. Oh god! She wrecked my shit! But there we go, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the final boss battle against Windy Witchcart herself. And, why am I pausing? There we go. Yeah, just same as all the other bosses in the game, just continuously grab her, continuously boop her until she dies, and she'll continuously shoot energy blasts upwards to the top of the screen. Now, if you're lucky enough, you can actually sort of get her into a loop, where you can sort of chuck her at the floor, but stay close enough to her so you'll automatically pick her up almost immediately. So when she chucks all these energy blasts at you, you can... Basically, if you're quick enough, you can just continuously pick her up, chuck her at the floor, pick her up, chuck her at the floor, and it will bring her health down like nobody's business. How much health does she have? I don't know. There's no health bar. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We've taken care of Windy Witchcart. We have saved West Side Island, I think. Is it West Side? Well, we saved Tails' Island from tyranny. And, yeah, that's basically all she wrote, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for Tails Skypatrol. It's a neat little side distraction that I'm not too fond of, purely because of the controls, but the soundtrack's okay. It's an okay game overall. I just really wish you could zoom out the screen. And I'd recommend people to try it out, you know. If you have a Sonic Adventure DX, for example, you can always pick it up on there and try it out. And, yeah, that is it for this LP. So thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Don't be sheepish, people. And I'll catch you all next time in the next LP, which will be Tails Adventure for the Sega Game Gear, which is going to be a bit of a longer one. Great deal longer than this one. This is only one part long. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you after. Don't be sheepish, people. Bye!